Hi everyone, and welcome back to this tutorial series for beginners. So in this video we would be learning how we can make certain things happen only when certain conditions are fulfilled. So let's take an example. Let's say that you're making a program for a school which checks the marks of a student and compares them to the minimum required marks. And according to the comparison, it tells whether the student is eligible or they are not eligible. So this is a real life example of where such a thing could be used. So now let's learn how it is done in Python. So I have a Python program opened here. So the syntax for an if statement is if, then you write the condition. I'm just writing this pseudocode here, and after a colon you write the bunch of code which you want to print. So the code goes here. Now to compare, we would obviously need to use some operator. So for comparisons, we have certain operators which I would teach you now. So the first operator that we have is equal to, and equal to operator is written with double equal tos. So the second operator that we have is not equal to. It is written as exclamation equal to. So this would return true if the value a, which is being compared to the value b, are equal in type and they are equal in magnitude. So 2 and 2, although they are same in value, they do not have the same type. So these would be different, and this whole operation would return false. Not equal to is used to check that if A is not equal to B, and if that condition is met, it returns a true. Then we have greater than. So if A is greater than B, if A is greater than B, then it gives a true output. And if it's not, it gives a false output. Then we have less than. So if A is less than B, then this would return true. Then we have greater than equal to B. So it means if A is either greater than or equal to B. And we have less than equal to. So here, if A is either less than or equal to B, then this would return true. So let's go to the Python shell and do a little bit of experimentation there. So Python 3, and here is our shell. So I will declare a variable A, I'll set it to 10, a variable B, which is 3, and I would create another variable C, which is also 10. So if I write A is equal to B, then this gives me false. If I write A is equal to the string 10, it gives me false, even though A is 10. If I write A not equal to B, it gives me true because B is 3, as you can see here. A is greater than or equal to B, it gives me true. A is greater than or equal to C, which is 10, it gives me true again. So, but if I would have written A is greater than C, then it would give me false because A is not greater than C, it is equal to. So similarly, let me do A is less than or equal to C. This also gives me true. A less than B, it gives me false. A less than 11 gives me true. So I think I've covered all the operators. Yes. So now we have this out of the way, and let's go back to that example. So let's take student marks as a variable, and we would catch the float of the input that the person takes. Enter your marks. Now the marks would be cached into this variable, which is student marks, and the input that we would get would be converted into a flotation point decimal. So now let's also define the minimum marks. Let's say the minimum marks are 30. And now let's make the comparison. So here we would say if, and if you remember the syntax correctly, here we specify the condition. Now we need marks which are either greater than or equal to the minimum marks. So the comparison that we would make is student marks greater than or equal to minimum marks. And then with a colon, we write what would happen if this condition is met. So let's say print, you are eligible. Python 3 part 2.py. And I would run this, enter your marks. Let's say my marks are 40. And it says you're eligible. Now, if I enter something like 12, it gives me nothing, but we want it to show some output. So let's add else. So if this condition returns false, then it falls back to the else statement and anything written here is done. So print, you are not eligible. Enter your marks, 12, you are not eligible. Let's one up this program now. Let's say that if the marks are somewhat between 29 and 25, you want to say that you have been moved to the waiting list, that you're not directly eligible, but you have been moved to a waiting list. Now, how can we do that? You can simply add an if statement here, but that would not be efficient because it can only happen if this condition does not hold true. So that is where else if conditions come into play. So else if is written as elif in Python. Elif, student marks are greater than or equal to 25. Then you can print, you have been put into the waiting list. And let me run it here and let me enter 26. You have been put into the waiting list. Some of you might be wondering that if I enter something like 34, then it just says you're eligible, while it is also true that your marks are greater than 25. Now, why is that? Excellent question. The reason this happens is that there is an order of precedence in these operations. So if condition is checked first, and if it is true, then the interpreter simply ignores the elif and else because these are the fallback statements in case the if condition returns false. So if I were to make an order of precedence, the first one would be if. If is checked, and then elif is checked. And the last fallback that we have is the else statement. If the if condition returns true, then none of them are checked. If the if condition returns false, then the elif is checked, and if that also returns false, then the else code is just run. In case if is true, these are simply ignored. In case if is false and elif is true, then else is simply ignored. It's not even considered. So that is why when I enter something like 70, even though it is greater than 25 and it's greater than 30, it still gives me only the first message, which is you are eligible. Now if I were to replace it with another if statement and then run it, 70, then these ifs are both on the same order of precedence. This is the reason that both the messages would be printed. But if I write elif and then I enter 70, it simply ignores these statements if this returns true. Thank you so much for watching this video, and goodbye.